Good afternoon, everyone. As Richard said, my name's Louise Clark. So I'm from Luton, but I work up here in Liverpool now, and I have done since lockdown. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Inside Connections. Now, I don't know if any of you know Inside Connections, but what we are is an organisation that helps marginalised individuals. So that could be ex-care leavers, ex-veterans, or ex-offenders. And what we do is we provide education and training with the sole purpose to get them into employment to prevent reoffending. Now, we've had that company has been it's been here since 2017. It was founded by John Burton, who was an ex-offender, and he realised when he was in prison that there were some barriers that needed to overcome. So that's what the sole purpose of setting that business is for, which which I'll go on and I'll explain a little bit more about that in the process and how I got here. So as I said, I'm Chief Operating Officer, and it's kind of strange because when I go back to when I was younger and how I got to this role, for me it's been a long journey. So growing up, it was quite difficult. I was the youngest of three people. My dad was an alcoholic, and my mum, she was, my mum, they're both around. They were married, they're still married. But my mum suffered horrific domestic violence. So there was a lot of violence in the house. My dad obviously was a heavy drinker. And from a very young age, I was the youngest. My brother, I've got 5 years and 3 years in between us. And my older brother got into crime at around 13. So with that in mind, me being young, my mum worked nights to escape my dad. There was kind of not many people around. So I kind of took my brother's lead, and it wasn't intentional. It was just that was kind of the way forward. I sort of looked at my brother and his friends and what they were doing. I thought that's exciting. So I got involved in crime at about 9 years old. I started to listen to a scanner and got paid to do those, those little things that kind of helped him, which was listen out for police radios, etc. With that, I ended up getting a lot of money. So it was only a £5 a night, but at 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, that's a lot of money. So with that, my schooling really suffered. So I started high school at 11. I was expelled. I was kicked out 15 times. 3 of those were exclusions. My first court appearance, I was 12 years old, and I was at the youth court. So I was smoking cannabis really heavy, and that led on to ecstasy and speed at sort of 13, 14, and then into a crack and heroin addiction at 16. So my kind of career or my life in terms of education, I didn't have one. I left school with no qualifications. I didn't sit a GCSE. I didn't do any courses. And it's funny because I look now, my children, I've got 3 children, and when they give me their homework, in terms of common sense and other skills that I've acquired as an adult, I'm quite, I've got a lot of skills there and I've got a lot of knowledge. But if somebody asks me certain things around history and geography, I really don't know because I didn't pay attention in school. For my schooling, I didn't do anything. I carried on that path after I was expelled and at 16, drug and heroin and crack addiction. I then went down that path for several years and got into all different areas of crime, just to sort of feed the habit. And then I ended up in prison and served a 9-month sentence. I went to prison twice, but the first one it was more of an on remand, and then I got a conviction for 18 months and served 9 months of that. So what was my changing point? When I was sat in prison, I had a daughter at that point. I was a single mum, and I thought, I'm going to have to change my career. What am I going to do? What am I doing with my life? I've got no qualifications, no skills. I've got no hope. What do I do? And I came out and I thought, right, I'm going to, I did pick up some skills along the way. I did some hairdressing qualifications, just sort of little bits, but it was so sporadic because I would think, right, I'm going to do this, because I'd have these little whims of thinking, right, I know what I'm going to do. I need to do better. I need to change. And I'd do a course, and then that course probably wouldn't go anywhere, and it didn't go anywhere. And I did bits and bobs. But then when I was in prison, I sat there and I thought, I don't want this for the rest of my life. I really, really want to change. I want to move forward and do something. I want to be an inspiration to my daughter. So I came out and I went to college to study fashion. And I was really fortunate that I was like, well, I wasn't fortunate. It was quite different. When I came out of prison, I thought I'll get a job at first. I tried to get a job and I couldn't get a job because I had the ex-offender. So I remember back in those days, I used to have to do my CV on a typewriter. So I would type my CV up on a typewriter. I'd send it off to, on a Thursday, you'd get the local paper out, and I'd send those jobs off to everybody. And they asked me the question. I thought, right, this new life that I'm doing, I'm being straight, I'm going to lie, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say I've got a criminal conviction. And every job I went for, sandwich factories, everything, they didn't want to take me on. So I thought, well, what can I do? I'm going to have to go back to college. And again, when I went to college, I had the tick box, are you an ex-offender? And I thought, have you got a criminal record? I thought, I'm going to lie, and I'm just not going to, I'm going to leave it blank. So I did, I left it blank. And I then managed to go on to do college. I did some fashion design courses, I did millinery, and then I managed to I got a job with Arcadia Group. And at this point, I'd started to get my qualifications. I'd started to be able to engage socially with people, because that was one of the things that's quite difficult when you've come from a sort of a background of being a rebel and not wanting to talk to people, everybody that you spoke to in terms of authority or in a position of power, which is what I saw work and school and education, all of that, as those people were in a position of power, and I didn't like them. So I thought, right, okay, did my qualifications, and then I got offered a job at Arcadia Group, and I did lie on the application form, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody, and which is why I'm doing the job that I'm doing now. But at that time, that was what I needed to do to put my foot on the ladder. I worked as a PA for Arcadia Group for quite a few years, and it was really good because it opened my mind to the working world and actually what goes on, and there is so much more out there. With that in mind, my passion kind of grew, and I decided then to go back to college. I had another child, and I thought, right, I need to look at what I'm doing with my life. Where am I going to go? What's my career path? What's my options? And I've got one of these things where I always want to learn more. I'm not one of these people that likes to be still or content in a single role. So I thought, right, what else can I learn? Because then I got the bug. There is a bug around. I think once you start doing education as an adult, it's really, if you get it and you just want to continue to learn. So I went to university to do a marketing qualification, and it was an extended degree because I had no qualifications whatsoever in terms of academia. I'd had some vocational ones that I picked up at City and Guilds. But I thought, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to apply through clearing. So I applied through clearing to do a law degree. A marketing degree, and one of the modules was law, and I thought, and I aced it. I got an A+ for my contract law assignment. So I sat there, and they all said to me, the lecturers said, look, have you ever considered doing law? And I think I had a vested interest in it because of my past, and I really liked it, and I understood it, and to me, law governs everything. And when I was doing my sort of life of crime back then, one of them was around shoplifting and then taking back and getting my money back, which I say it now with kind of sort of in a sort of jovial way, but actually, it wasn't right what I did back then. But I look at it, but I'd always had a passion there for the law and being a sort of ways around it and navigating it. So I thought a lot long and hard about it, and I thought, actually, I'm going to do that. So I then I undertook my law degree. And it was challenging because I had children at home, and I was obviously, doing a bit of work here and there to be able to pay my bills. But I did my law degree, and in my second year, I got Student of the Year. I got invited to Lincoln's Inn as an honorary member, which I'm still a member of now. And then I went on from there in the final year, and I got I won a scholarship for my last year, so they funded my last year. And I came out of there, I remember because I hadn't told them about my past, I wanted to keep that quiet. And at that point, it wasn't because I was ashamed from it. It was just I was so far removed from that person that I was back then that I didn't feel it was relevant. But the day that I got on my graduation, I decided to say, right, okay, well, I'm going to go and tell my law lecturer, because there was jokes in the university. One of the guys, the lecturers, who's actually funny enough now, he's one of the deans at Sir John Moore. He was from Oldham, and he had this thing about Luton people, and he said, oh, you're all chavs, and X, Y, and Z about Luton, and but he said to me, oh, you're different, you are. And I thought, I'm not going to tell him. I'm going to let him see how far he can go with this. Let's explore it. Let's kind of let him, continue with it. So then the day that I graduated, before I graduated, because I wanted to make sure that I accepted it with integrity, I told them both that I was an ex-offender and that I had lied on my application to get here. And I said, at this point, if you don't want to give me the qualification, I fully understand it. And at that point, one of the guys, I'll never forget him, Dr. Joe Stevens, said to me, you might have lied to get here, but the lie didn't keep you here. The lie didn't put the long hours in, it didn't get you your first class degree. So, you know, you deserve it. And then afterwards, so I went and collected my awards and it was great. And then afterwards, he said to me, oh, I think we need to look at this ban the box. He said, because there's something come out, it's a new initiative. It's about helping ex-offenders. It's about removing the barriers that people face. And there are barriers for different reasons, but ban the box is around ex-offenders. So I said, okay. So then I worked on him with that. And I was the case study for ban the box. And one of the reasons why it's really important that we take that box away, especially around education. So it was my campaign was for ban the box within education, and I'm under the Bloomsbury campus in London, and that's where we put it forward. I was a case study. Lord Neuenberger mentioned me in his speech, which was my bit of a claim to fame at the time. Lord Neuenberger was the master of the rolls, and he said this was one of the reasons why we shouldn't have these barriers, because there are, you know, somebody might have made a mistake in their past, but it shouldn't carry with them for the rest of their life. So we moved forward. We put ban the box, and ban the box went forward. It's rolled out across most colleges, which is fantastic. And I, you know, from that role, then once I got my degree, I was positioned. I did some mini pupilages down in London. I worked in the solicitor's office, but it was a bit too stuffy for me, and I wasn't sure if that's where I wanted to do, if that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Then an opportunity came up with a company called Anheuser-Busch, which is Budweiser. So the brands that they have is Budweiser, Stella Artois, Beck's, and a bigger portfolio. And I worked for them supply chain at first, but then I worked in their trade marketing, but more around their terms and conditions, their conditions of sale, their advertising from a legal aspect. And one of the big things that I did, which was kind of claim to fame, was the 2014 FIFA World Cup. So sort of some, you know, 10, 12 years on or whatever from prison, I forget what it was, a bit longer than that, from prison, I was there as doing the heads of the master visuals for the FIFA World Cup. I was I was working with the big malts, which is your Budweiser, your Sainsbury's, Morrison, Tesco's, Asda, Co-op. And I worked with them and secured all of the contracts with them to make sure that we had our displays at the front of the store. We did station domination. We took over Waterloo, we took over King's Cross, and we put all of our packs in there. We did experientials. We did an out-of-home experience, which was in, I don't know if any of you guys know, the IMAX in London. It's the biggest out-of-home that's in the UK or in Europe. And I was in the lead for doing the Budweiser, holding the one of the games there. So what we had, it was a big customer event, and I oversaw that, which was miles away from where I was. I then worked on the Wimbledon and the Open, and I did experientials again, experiential is an experience for a customer. It's about the customer journey. It's about how they find trust in the brand. So what we did was from the year before, there was something called Rufus the Hawk, which some of you might remember, overtook Wimbledon. And what we did was we put in virtual reality, and it was a big plate where there was a person could lay on it, and we had fans, and we had the virtual headsets, and it spun around. And what for the customer, the experience was with the virtual headset, they felt like they were Rufus and they were flying over Wimbledon. And at the same time, we did our new project launch of Cedra. So then moving on from there, I stayed in that industry. Been in that industry for near on 20 years. I've worked for Heineken, I've done Champions League, obviously FIFA World Cup, done the Open, I've done Europa League, I've done FA Cup grassroots, which was really great. So I did something called Club Budweiser, where we identified 16 clubs around the country as part of the FA Cup, which is my favourite tournament. And we gave them £50,000 each to do up their club to make sure that they could provide facilities to be able to compete in that league, which was great. And it gave a lot of people opportunity, and it gave people that in those areas that were sort of deprived areas, gave them the opportunity to hire staff. It built their community up. It generated community spirit, which was fantastic. And I've been, as I say, in that profession for a long time. And then we kind of fast forward, and lockdown comes. So I was with Heineken, and we was doing all of those, entertaining, absolutely loved it. And then we were thrown into a COVID world. So COVID came about, and it gave us a lot of time. It gave me time to, that industry, as you know, kind of ceased or just stopped. And it's very rare that industry, the brakes get put on suddenly and you have that emergency stop. And when I was working at such a fast pace that when that stop came in, it was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And I had a few questions anyway, which was around, I was questioning at the time. So I'd turned 40 a few years before, and I was thinking, right, a couple of years before, thinking, what do I do? What am I doing? Is this really what I want to do? And I started to think back about my past, and actually my relationship with alcohol as a brand, or alcohol in general, because of my dad's past. And I thought, actually, I don't know if I'm happy doing this, but bills to pay. So at night, I didn't feel like I had much fulfillment from it. And then during lockdown, I thought, actually, maybe there is a bit more to what I want to do with myself, or where I want to go. And I stumbled across Inside Connections. So it was just one of them things. I think I spent quite a lot of time in the early days, in the beginning of March, on social media, because you've come to a stop and it's like, right, okay, we're furloughed. There wasn't Zooms happening or anything at that point. It was like, well, what do I do? So I ended up going across social media, and I come across John Burton, the founder of Inside Connections. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, I really love what they do, because it was all of the things, the troubles that I've had, and the criminal past that I've moved away from, having to lie to get myself away from that. So I came across the Inside Connections, and I just thought I really liked them. So I made contact with John, and I did a little bit of work with him just remotely from home. He asked me to look at his applications and what they've got going on, have a read through, and from there it's grown. So I worked in a voluntary capacity throughout the first part of lockdown, and then I decided to jump ship and move full-time into this role. And the reason being is because it's helping people, and it's showing people that your past is just one part. It's your past, it's gone. There's so much more. That everybody has something inside them, and it's just making sure that they know that that there is something in them, and they can achieve whatever they want to achieve. So I sat and I thought, right, I'm obviously make this decision. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I wouldn't look back now. I think, it's a journey to how I got here, and it's like a circle in a way, because 9 years old, introduced to crime, and then here I am now, thinking that this is the rest of my career. It's about helping those people, overcoming barriers, making sure that if somebody has had a mistake in the past, that's it. It's a mistake in the past. We can move forward from that, and so giving them that support and that guidance, and to show them that just because they've made that mistake, it doesn't mean they haven't got that worth about them. So I've kind of, for me, the differences that I make is if I help one person, then that, for me, I feel like I'm doing something really positive. And it's one of the things I will say to people as well, when they're in this area of self-doubt or a confusion, or they don't know what they want to do with themselves. For me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, when I look back, I didn't know what I wanted to do. At school, I hated school. I hated authority. Really didn't like it at all. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Tried a little bit of this, tried a little bit of that, but never felt like I had that of getting contentment. And throughout my career, I suffered with impostor syndrome, because I knew I was keeping a secret, and I kind of felt like, am I good enough to do this job or whatever? But now when I speak with people, I think, and I try to tell people a lot that you don't know where you're going right now, and that's fine. If you're unsure about something, that's absolutely fine. Nobody, as long as you try and figure out different things and learn every day, and always try and see the positive in something. And for me, if you improve yourself by 1% every day, this time next year, you're 365 times better than what you are now. So that's kind of, that for me is what I do. I mean, my role is challenging, because it's challenging people's perceptions of people, and that's what I want to do. So I want to help and support and guide people, which is what Inside Connections do. They help people that are have obviously ex-prisoners, ex-offenders, ex-military and ex-care leavers, But also what we've had to do with COVID is realise that there's a lot more marginalised people out there, people that have got barriers. We want to break down those barriers. So for us, and I think I'd mentioned to Richard previously, but for us, regards to employment, we know that COVID has hit the world really hard, and 7.5 million people have been affected by COVID in terms of the employment. And what we have now is we have a really large talent pool of people in a really small labour market. And we've got the people that we work with that, you know, are further down the ladder now, because you've got overqualified people going for entry-level jobs, which pushes ours back. So for me, the challenges that I find at this moment in time is one is to be able to put them onto that level playing field, which is really important to me, to give them that opportunity. And for me, then the other one is about people's perceptions of an ex-offender. And because I'm an ex-offender myself, what I get quite a lot is, oh, you don't seem like an ex-offender. Well, I am, and I'm kind of a testament to say that people who have got past criminal past can go on and they can move forward and they can change their life. I mean, it's great. My job is great as well. Like, there's some really, really good fun parts to it. The team are fantastic that I work with, and seeing people, you know, come out, get their job, go on and do better lives. For me, I get so much fulfillment and enjoyment out of that. So for me, that's a really kind of a fun part, and it's what I love about it. So that's kind of where I am. And I think for me, for anyone that wants to get into this industry, you know, I'm happy to share my details. Give me, you know, drop me an email, give me a call, and I can guide you on that and say, you know, how to do that, and even work with you and put together a little bit of a plan. Because one thing I will give the advice to young people is that, you know, just if you don't know where you're going and you don't know what you want to do, that's absolutely fine. As long as as long as you learn from everything and every day and take a positive from everything, then, you know, you'll find your way, and you find your way naturally. But anyone kind of, if anyone does need that support, or anyone does need that, or if they're a bit unsure, or if they, you know, I'm really happy for you guys to share my details and to kind of get in touch, and that's it really. That's a bit from me. Obviously, it's a long journey to get here. It's not your uniform journey. It's not the way that everybody expects, you know, for me to have got here. And it's funny because I sit here now and I think, oh my goodness, I'm a chief operating officer of an organisation that helps. Yeah, chief operating officer in one title is big, and I think, wow, it's amazing. Well done, you. Pat on the back. But then also to be able to do it where I'm helping people that have had issues and problems, and that are going through issues and problems, and saying to them that, you know, it's not over, continue doing that, and we'll all, you know, we can help you, and there's support and guidance out there. What we do actually as a company now, we are we're working with colleges around the UK. We've got national status with 12, and hopefully it should be 19 by the next academic year. We're working to get apprenticeships for people into employment, into all different avenues. So that's, I'll shut up now because I think I've been on for a bit longer than what I was planning to be on. So, but if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'll open the floor.